It is not very common for someone sitting in a state of ease, with no apparent problems in their current life, to suddenly start crying without reason. Some emotional responses arise unexpectedly and without explanation. You may notice tears forming while reading something ordinary, watching a quiet scene, or even sitting alone with no identifiable trigger. These tears appear to have no cause in the present moment, yet the reaction feels real, immediate, and overwhelming. This experience confuses many people because it does not follow the expected pattern of grief or emotional release. It occurs without conscious thought, without a clear event, and often in moments when everything appears calm. The physical response is undeniable, but the reason behind it stays hidden. This phenomenon is not a dysfunction or a psychological error. It is the result of layers within a person that remain active even when forgotten. The body responds to what the conscious mind cannot locate. What follows is a breakdown of the causes behind unexplained tears based on memory stored beyond language, time, and current identity. 1. The tears aren't from this life, they're from one you can't remember. There are emotional imprints that do not come from this lifetime's experiences. They are not attached to current relationships, visible events, or known history. They come from places and conditions the body no longer recognizes, but the emotional imprint remains active within the system. These tears are not symbolic. They are chemical and physical responses to unresolved impressions that have survived changes in personal history. The conscious mind operates in the present, but the deeper layers of memory continue to hold emotion from other timelines, including ones outside the framework of this life. This response can be triggered by familiar sounds, faces, locations, or phrases that activate stored memory without the brain making a logical connection. The tears do not reflect confusion. They reflect exposure to material that bypasses the logical mind and contacts something deeper. 2. Your soul is mourning people you haven't met in this lifetime. Unexplained sadness often points to an internal experience of loss without a reference point. You may feel a longing, an emptiness, or an emotion resembling grief without any specific person or event attached. This is not random. It reflects recognition without access. The recognition occurs at a level that does not use names, events, or visuals. It is based on energy, familiarity, and emotional bonds that are carried across timelines or dimensions of experience. These people are not forgotten by the deeper parts of the self, even if they are not part of the current life structure. This creates a response that resembles mourning, but without the language to explain it. The sense of absence does not result from loneliness. It results from the lack of reunion. The tears are the body's way of acknowledging a connection that continues to exist even when the context has been removed. 3. You're grieving versions of you that were never allowed to exist. There are many potential versions of a person that never reach full expression. Choices, circumstances, fear, and external influence can prevent certain aspects of identity from developing. Over time, these possibilities remain dormant but not erased. The emotional response to these lost versions often appears during moments of stillness, reflection, or exposure to something that represents freedom or truth. It may not trigger a memory, but it triggers a contrast between what exists and what was possible. That contrast carries weight. These tears represent the body's way of releasing the tension between current identity and suppressed potential. The grief is not about regret alone. It is about the invisible presence of parts of the self that never reached full development, yet remain emotionally alive within the system. 4. You cry when nothing's wrong, because everything was. In many cases, the emotional system does not respond to a single event. It responds to accumulation. When there is no time, space, or safety to process pain as it happens, that pain is stored. The storage is not conscious. It resides in the nervous system, the hormonal patterns, and the layers of memory. Tears that arrive without a trigger often reflect the release of stored content. These are not reactions to the present. They are expressions of what was never fully allowed in the past. The moment appears safe, but the internal system still holds signals from times that were not. This is why tears may come during rest, silence, or recovery. The absence of chaos permits the emergence of content that could not be processed when things were unstable. It is not a problem. It is the continuation of emotional processing that was postponed, not dismissed. 5. That ache in silence, it's a message from your old selves. There are periods in life where silence does not feel neutral. It brings with it an emotional pressure that has no visible cause. This experience is often described as an ache or heaviness, located emotionally or physically, but not attached to anything present. This sensation can be traced to earlier versions of the self that remain active but unaddressed. These versions are not mental constructs. They are actual psychological states that held emotion and identity at different points in time. Without expression or closure, they continue to send signals to the present. The tears that appear in response to this ache are not irrational. They are clear indicators of internal feedback. They serve the purpose of bringing forward the stored emotion of previous identity states that still seek recognition, understanding, or release within the current form. 6. You're processing collective trauma you didn't choose, but inherited. Emotional responses are not always personal. Research in epigenetics and transgenerational trauma has shown that the impact of major events can be passed through generations. These transmissions occur through emotional conditioning, chemical changes, and learned behavior, often without spoken explanation. The tears that arise without a personal trigger may reflect emotional energy that belongs to collective or ancestral memory. This includes grief, suppression, fear, and abandonment that was never resolved and continues to move through generational lines. The body receives these patterns as part of its inherited system. Crying without cause in this context reflects processing, not instability. The emotional system is responding to material that may not have originated with the individual, but still requires attention and completion. This is not projection. It is integration, done silently but powerfully. 7. You're not broken, you're leaking truth. Unexplained crying is often misunderstood as dysfunction or weakness. In reality, it reflects the body's accurate registration of information the mind has not processed. Emotion that is suppressed in one channel must eventually emerge through another. The tears represent the release of material that could not be communicated in thought or language. They are not byproducts of instability. They are evidence of internal awareness that has reached a threshold. The voice may not be able to speak it. The body does, and this is not a signal of failure. It is an organic correction. The system continues to respond to input, even when the logical mind does not understand it. The tears are not a collapse. They are a signal that something internal has passed the point of being held quietly. 8. Some tears are activations and not breakdowns. Not every emotional release indicates pain. Some tears arrive at the point of recognition when something important has been touched or remembered internally. This is especially common during moments of clarity, exposure to art, or sudden alignment with deep truth. These tears do not feel chaotic. They feel calm, slow, and consistent. They carry a sensation of contact with something familiar, but not previously accessible. This is a direct emotional reaction to alignment between internal memory and present experience. Such reactions are rarely understood consciously in the moment. They appear without warning, but they are not random. They signal a moment of activation within the system, a return to information or awareness that has remained dormant, but deeply intact. 9. The emotion you can't name is the life you haven't remembered yet. There are moments where emotion becomes intense without any identifiable content. No memory surfaces, no thought explains it. Yet the sensation is precise, persistent, and emotionally charged. This is often a direct experience of contact with memory that has not yet returned to awareness. The brain uses language, narrative, and sequence to make sense of emotion. But not all memory follows that format. Some emotional responses are fragments from lives, identities, or events that were experienced by the soul but not retained by the conscious mind. These tears do not follow cause and effect. They follow contact. And the more that contact occurs, the closer the conscious self comes to identifying its source. Until then, the tears are the most accurate signal that internal recognition is already happening, even before understanding has caught up. If you have made it this far, let us know what you think in the comment section below. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now. Thanks for watching.